Hi, this is Joe Mayotte from TheFrogRack.com, just giving you a little video tour of my current frog room. Right now I have everyone on their shelves in this sort of storage room. I just cleaned the glass and fed the frogs, and so now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my collection. This is a 20 vert with a female super blue Aratus in it. A lot of people ask on the forums how bold Aratus are, and it definitely varies by morph, and it varies with how you set up their tank and where you keep them in your house. A high traffic area will get them used to people. I've had this female for a while. She's produced a lot of froglets for me. She's living alone right now to take a break from breeding. I'll show you my other super blues right now. This is another 20 vert with a trio in here, a male and two females. They're down here eating. There's my male. There's a melanistic female who's also produced a lot for me. The other female's in there somewhere. But again, as far as boldness, you just saw me open the tank, shove a camera in their tank, stick my hand right next to them, and they hopped away a little bit, but they're right here still. I see my super blue Aratus every time I walk into the frog room. They don't dive for cover. Here's another 10-gallon tank with a pair. Here's the female, who is super big and bold. And I think she would hang out. She'd hop right up onto my hand. She's not afraid of anything. But I will admit, the male in this tank stays hunkered down in the leaf litter almost all the time. I usually only see him first thing in the morning, climbing glass, waiting for flies. So those are my adult super blues. This happens to be a morph out, a 2.5 gallon morph out container I have set up that currently has super blues in it. I use some substrate foam, leave a little open water portion area, and that's when I notice my tadpoles bust out their front legs. I just dump them into that little pond area, and then they morph out and live in this tank for about 2 months. There's a melanistic froglet. And then a bunch of other super blues. These are all about 3 months old, hanging out in here. I really like that morph out idea, just using 2.5 or 5 gallon tanks, providing a whole sort of pond habitat area. I like it a lot better than tilting cups and watching morph outs that way, because you know, I've never had drowning, I've never had morphing froglets drown in a setup like this, and I find the froglets to be really stable and to grow faster in a little tank like this. Rather than, I do have these containers as morph outs. Each of these containers has 2 or 3 different froglets in them that I used as morph out containers, and I would prefer to have more 2.5 or 5 gallon tanks for them. So let me show you the rest of the frogs on this rack. These are New River tinks, a group of 4 that I have growing up so that I can eventually pair them up. Really great tink species morph. I like them a lot. I have another 5 New River tinks in here from a different line. So between these 5 New Rivers and the other 4, I hope to have pairs that represent male-female pairs of different lines to maximize the genetic diversity. So those guys are in a really well-planted grow-out 10-gallon. You already saw those super blues. In here, I have 3 green and white Aratus who are definitely shy for me to go out more. This one has more of a reticulated pattern, but this is again a 12-month-old frog showing a lot very light colors. Here's Another one, this is the one that is more blue in color, and rather than reticulated, as you can see, more of a marbled blue, white, and brown marbled pattern. Where'd it go? Right there. Oh, that's a good shot. Beautiful frogs. Definitely, I admit they are shy. I imagine once they hit sexual maturity and start calling and courting and breeding, that they'll be more bold, because that has been my experience with other Aratus morphs. Here they are, hopping to the front through the glass, ready for food. So there they are. They were pretty cooperative, letting me get shots of them. Here are Panama 04 import turquoise and bronze frogs. These are F2 frogs. I have a male and 2 female trio that get along well. Every time one of the females is full of eggs and courting the male, the other female will wrestle with her. And sometimes the girls eat each other's eggs. But I kind of let them do their own thing in this tank, including tank raise some tadpoles. Using substrate foam, I sectioned off 3 small areas in the front of this tank for them to deposit tadpoles. And I don't know if the camera, yeah, well, the male just ran away and hid. The 2 females are definitely turquoise in color. The camera doesn't do them justice as far as the intensity of the color and whatnot. And the male, who just ran away into his log, is a little bit more green, metallic green. And then very similar looking frogs, but a different morph. These are L. Cope Aratus. Again, I just opened the tank lid, shoved my hand in there, and you can see that they are as bold as a tink. I would recommend these if people want a brightly colored turquoise and bronze Aratus. The L. Copes are big, bold, awesome frogs. And I did notice while I was feeding them that they just laid a clutch last night of 5 fresh eggs under their cocoa hut. In here I have some frogs. They were misidentified by the person who sold them to me as SNDF green and whites, and even in my thread and on my website I had identified them as green and whites because, well, you can see they bear a resemblance. But I have since confirmed that these are a different frog that Marcus was selling at SNDF, and they come from was being called the bronze and green frog for lack of a better name. I believe, because of their small size and their coloration, that they're similar to the camo frogs, but these came in an import in 2009, and so for lack of better data, I would suggest that these are Capira integrades, and they must come from some sort of population around Campana or Capira in Panama, where the brown and cream frogs mix with the black and green frogs and produce guys like this. That's the female. These guys are shy. They like to hide back there. That female is really nicely colored though. She basically looks like a green and white Campana. I have a trio of yellow truncatus in here. I set up my truncatus sort of in a stream side type tank. I used substrate foam on the bottom, and on top of that I put my soil mix and plants. But at the edge of the substrate foam towards the front of the tank, I just stacked these small rocks to create sort of a little riverbank with a nice water area. I found that truncatus really like water. They dive into the water to feel secure, and as you can tell by this male who's just sort of hanging out, he doesn't mind going for a swim. In this tank I have a group of blue truncatus, and they are young frogs, about 14 months old, but they have started laying eggs. I get nice big clutches of 5 or 6 eggs about once a week from this 3 male, 2 female group, but they have always been infertile. So I'm waiting for these guys to get it right and start giving me fertile eggs. I'd love to be able to offer lots of healthy froglets of the blue truncatus to some friends and you fellow hobbyists. These guys aren't shy either. They don't seem to be bothered by me opening the lid and checking them out. If I start rummaging around and lifting up their film cans and cocoa huts, they'll go away. I find that they lay their eggs in film cans, these black film cans on the floor, rather than under their cocoa hut. The camera doesn't do them justice. They're much more blue than they appear in this shot, but they are a bluish-green color. The next, I posted about this little setup using a Home Depot shelf and 8 gasketed waterproof totes from the Container Store that I adapted using T-ball stainless steel mesh lids for ventilation. These are my Capira auratus, and a nice group in there that's been laying eggs for me. Gotta watch out that no one hops out. This is really densely planted. I have it set up obviously to just keep them happy, help them feel secure, and so that they are comfortable to breed. But clearly it's not great for viewing them. But here is one of the Capira auratus, really interesting black frogs with spots and speckles of green on them. And I'm happy that this group of 4 has been laying eggs for me recently, and I have some tadpoles growing up. In this container there are some banded lukes, really heavily planted, so I'm sure they're happy in here. This is a group of 5 females that I grew up from froglets, and so if anybody watching this has some male banded lukes, I'd love to hear from you. In this container I have just some turquoise and bronze auratus froglets growing out, and I'll try to spot for you one of the melanistic turquoise and bronze. There's one guy. Thought that was interesting that this pair started throwing. About every 10 froglets was of these turquoise and bronze auratus, showed the melanistic coloring. That's just their grow out. Plenty of cork and cover for them to grow big and healthy. In here I have the green and cream Capira integrades. These are going to be some holdbacks. And judging from the patterns, you could definitely see the resemblance to Camo auratus, whether they're the Melicon line Camo auratus or the SNDFs that came in from 0405. So again, I call these green Capira integrades because they must come from an integrade population similar to the Camo auratus. I'll make a separate video showing you a little bit more about my tadpole setups. But as you can see here, here's really efficient use of space on this shelf. I have 2 tadpole setups. This one completely filled with 40 super blue auratus tadpoles, happily munching away on tadpole bites and leaves. So that's all for now. I'll do another video update once I actually build and finish that new frog room. And that's it for now. Thanks.